Just fucking do it. Subscribe now. You saw Steve last night, right? We'll get around to him, but I said the first night, and I say ad nauseum, which means until you should be sick to your stomach, because I'm sick to my stomach having repeating myself a billion times. Success leaves clues. Steve, it was a prick. Everybody that, I got some emails last night that the odd success story, but that they find one good thing that Henry Ford did. And they try to build a personality, a persona around that one good fucking thing. They find one good thing that Steve did. You can't find any good thing he did. They find one good thing and they try to justify that they're a cunt, a pussy, a twat. And so they can continue their personality and they're not focusing on success leaves clues. All these guys are hard as shit. They're ruthless. They're selfish. They're single-minded. Like Steve was, who I knew. Some of you know some people that are kind of successful. Kinda is the operative word. Because they're cunts. And so you relate and you build your board with cunts. And then they throw you out, and we're going to have some sad stories, not on YouTube, where they did everything right. The guy goes on holiday for 6 weeks. Why he went 6 weeks, God only knows. He comes back, the company's gone. The name on the building's changed. Literally. Do you have the United Capital on any buildings? Don't. It's a bad sign. Can you imagine you go on holiday? Well, holiday's the first mistake, unless you're working. And he comes back, and the chairman and the CFO and the CEO, and we're going to read his email, not on YouTube. Some of you are going to cry. Or you're going to force back the tears and not cry. And they went to the bank and they said, this kid's a loser. Could be anybody in this room. This kid's a loser. He spent $600,000 back on this, and he owns 71% of the company. And he convinces the bank, once you breach a covenant one time, you can cure the covenant, but you're forever in breach. And they can take and call the loan. Now, I say this 1,000 times. Once you breach one time, you're always in breach, even if you make it up. So the bank, if they wake up with a hair up their ass, they can call the loan. And that's exactly what they did to this kid. They threw him, and they gave him 50,000 pounds and told him to get lost. The company was worth about 40 million pounds. He had been rolling up nurseries, little kid nurseries. By the way, nurseries are a good roll-up too, the plants and stuff. One of the biggest mistakes, and I'm getting ahead of myself, but based on the emails I just read, that you fill the board with people like you. Even though they know, they're knowledgeable, they're like you. And that's a recipe for disaster. Because at the end of the day, you'd rather be liked than effective. Even though you won't admit it, and the Russian bitch doctor thinks she's tough as nails, she's a pussy. I mean, there's one person in here that might be kind of tough, kind of. Now I'm talking about if you want to build $1 billion, billions and billions. At the close, I say the one word that I wish somebody had told me more so, and I was pretty selfish as a little kid, to be more selfish. Because you are attracted to people like you. 2 or 3 of the people that you're going to hear from this point forward are going to say, and one of the reasons that Josh went to 25 people is he found bright people like he's super bright. He's not Michelangelo like everybody says, but he's super bright. And he's an intellectual. He can talk about a lot of different things, so he brought about a bunch of intellectuals onto the board. But they had trouble getting anything done because they wanted to be liked too. And then when you surround yourself with a bunch of people, even though they've got transactions up the gazoo and they've got billions under their belt, if they want to be liked at the end of the day, when push comes to shove, at the close, they're not going to hammer the people. They won't hammer them. You want to get in the big leagues with the big boys, and I was reminded of this when I was at the funeral I told you about, with all these big hitters that I've known a long, long time. They've gotten soft now. They're in their 80s. A couple of them are in their 90s. Well, you can get soft when you're in the 80s and 90s, but before that, they were just hard. Now, Steve, now which film did you see? Did you see the film that he admitted that it might be his daughter when he found out if she was smart? Okay. There's a couple other films. The longer you're dead, the worse the films are. In other words, the more truth that comes out. And is this the film where he took all the stock away from all the employees just before they went public? No, it's another film. Okay, thank you. There was 11 or 14 people that were supposed to get stock that had been with him those first couple of years. Then 3 days before he went public, they were doing a spreadsheet. And he says, what are those people there? They're not getting any stock. Fuck them. Fire them. 72 hours before the IPO. Not just no stock. Fire them. That's the real world. Wozniak is a mentee of one of my mentees, who's up there, the Woz. Comments about Steve from you guys? Yes, sir.
He really, I really saw that he, don't confuse me with the facts.
Absolutely.
Throughout the whole movie.
Most of his product that came to market in the beginning didn't work. That's a whole other story, but go ahead. Yeah. He wasn't interested. Is that did you see the one, because I have 3 different movies. Did you see the one where he wanted a blue shirt with pockets or, yeah. Now, I saw him in Bangalore, India, at a private, exclusive club of just mostly rich pedophiles belong there. And he was dancing he was dancing from about 9 o'clock like this, his eyes closed, by himself, till 1:30. Sally and I got up, danced a couple times. They're closing the club down. He was in a trance. Nobody loves Steve more than Steve, believe me. They asked him 2 or 3 times to put, we're closing the place down. He couldn't give a shit less. He just kept on waddling around. But he's an icon. What else about Steve? Yes, sir, in the back.
Yes, he was not an engineer. He did not know how to put things in the computer. He did not know anything. But without him, Apple went shit.
Yeah. And you want to know everything, don't you, you fucking idiots? He wasn't interested in the why. He was only interested in the how. There's only 1 or 2 of the icons that you people raise up, and I'm not going to tell you which ones. 1 or 2, 1 possibly 2, that were interested in the how and the why. All the rest were just interested in the how. When I was running around chasing girls, I didn't care why they went to bed with me. I only know how I got them to bed. What else about Steve? Yes, sir, in the back.
He utilized fear. When Andy, one of the programmers, didn't know why the program wasn't working, he said, I'll embarrass every single fucking person that worked on this project. And I'll fucking blow your brains out.
I saw him try to throw a programmer out a window. I saw him throw, the old kind of computers, the big ones like this. I saw him throw a computer at a programmer. Fortunately, the programmer was quick enough to duck. I'm not trying to justify me dropping the aquarium. That's not what I'm trying to do here. That was an error in judgment, but I was, I blame it on I was a kid. What else about Stephen? Yeah. Yes, sir.
Not only did he not know about things, he got things wrong quite regularly. But
I can relate to that.
The biggest thing was everyone still followed him, even though he got it wrong.
Leadership skills. You can make yourself CEO or managing director, whatever you want to call it, from your little thing that you start. But you have to earn leadership. And a lot of the kids that come out of here start as CEO, but don't end up as CEO because it becomes obvious their leadership skills are not good enough. Well, they're non-existent. I mean, it's not that they're not good enough. Most of you in this room couldn't lead your way out of a wet paper bag. And one of the first persons we're going to talk about after we get off YouTube is Andreas, who has done a lot of hard work, developed pretty good leadership skills, and so we're not looking for a CEO anymore. He's created $80 million euro company, but we're not, of which 2/3 of it is his, so we're not looking for him. But success leaves clues. I mean, guys and gals, these people that you aspire to be like, or in most cases, because you don't know that much about their personality or you ignored what you know about their personality, aspire to make that kind of money. They're all the same. And that's not you. A few people develop hard skills. But remember I said the first night or the first morning, it's infinitely easier to begin hard, tight rules, and then loosen up. But most of you start with loosey-goosey, and it's impossible to tighten up. I've got 4 or 5 companies on the block, not me, you guys, because they've come, there's 3 or 4 benchmarks. 10 million in turnover is one, 50 million in turnover is another, 100 million in turnover is another. And that's why when I wrote the book a long time ago, Your First 100 Million, I was not talking about turnover, I was talking about making 100 million, but those are thresholds that are tough to get over. Because at some juncture around 50 million in turnover, you need professional management, or you're going to have a hard time continuing to grow. And when you stop growing at an increasing rate and you start growing at a decreasing rate, in other words, the curve starts to level off, you're through. I mean, vis-a-vis, being a Microsoft or one of those kinds of companies. But anything else about Stephen? Yes, sir, in the corner.
Well, so there's always these so many little nervous people around him, who tell him that he's the cold one, that he doesn't have any feelings or what.
He doesn't.
But I think
he did not suffer from empathy, sympathy, or self-pity either.
But I think he's the one who has the most feeling for himself.
Well, that's the only person. Remember, it doesn't matter if anybody else loves you. You got to love yourself. I mean, really love yourself, not like yourself. Most of you look in the mirror, you don't like what you see. Whether I'm fat, skinny, when I weigh 287 pounds, I loved every inch of my body. Didn't make a shit. And now it's sagging, and I still love it. Self-love, I mean, they don't teach you that. In fact, that's narcissistic, and there's all kinds of things that they describe that. And I've been described by all those words. Anything else about Steve? Success leaves clues. Now, in a couple days, when we spend a little bit of time about Elon Musk, who is the flavor of the day right now, and it has been for a few years. I used to send out give you something to read about 3 of his ex-wives. Wrote an article a few years ago, and then one of his ex-wives just came out with a book And it's no walk in the park being married to Elon. I mean, but he loves his boys, his 4 or 5 sons. He loves his boys. He can't say the same for his wives, but he certainly loves his boys. And he partially likes his wives soon after they produce a boy. But that wanes. The bloom comes off that rose. And again, all these guys, and I'm not justifying how I talk, because I talk like this way before Elon was born. I mean, they all use the same language, although they're trying to repaint their legacies because everybody's got an iPhone now, and it's very difficult. And you catch a president or the current president when he was vice president, when he thinks he's off mic, this is a big fucking deal, They all... And because people remember bad words more readily than they do Christian, Judaic, biblical words. They just do. That's just it. They just it. We moved this up from the last day based on, and the reason I read your homework, not so diligently, but I read it, is because whether you're getting it or not. And a number of you in here, based on just one homework reading, are in the twilight zone, meaning you don't get it. So we're going to bring up how some of you think it was easy, maybe, that the guy did it in 26 days. Well, the next closest after 26 days is like 53 days. So the fact that there's only been one guy in 28 and a half years that did it in 26 days is a big fucking deal. But he's following this format for 60 days, and I told him to cut it in half. And so he was striving for, when you look at your weekly reports, and when the reports I don't get anymore. You can do them for yourself. And I suggest strongly, when Dan suggests, that means you do it this way, meathead, or you're going to probably fail, that you keep track of the information that are on the reports daily. Because when you wait to the 5th or 6th day or 7th day to try to remember what you did the 1st or 2nd day, and you should be able to get a chairman and completed board in 10 days. You should get your outside accountants and lawyers in another 10 days, or a total of 20 days. You pre-interviewing multiple banks and lending parameters in 5 days. That's 25 days. Screening multiple motivated sellers and deals, another 10 days. That's 35 days. LOIs and offers. And remember, LOIs don't mean shit unless you're going to fight, but it's part of the format. People expect LOIs. Not all people, but some people. Another 10 days. 10 days, that's 45 days. And close a deal in 15 days. Seller finance, you can cut that in half. 30 days. And if you're really good, you can cut it in half again, 15 days. And we've only had 26 days. The next closest after that is 53 days, and then 60-some days. And banks, I just read a report from somebody that I'm chairman of. I won't say I had forgotten I was chairman, but I hadn't heard from him in maybe 4 or 5 months. He signed a $4.4 million healthcare deal in Middle America someplace, and it's going to close on the 27th or 28th of April. That's because the bank's fucking with it. And it's got to go through lending committee and this kind of committee. And it's an SBA deal. The great thing about SBA, the good news is you can get a lot of things done that you might not be able to get done someplace else. The bad news is they take forever. That's another 4, sometimes 8 weeks extra on top of it. And they have a $5 million limit, $5 million in equity that they loan. President Trump was going to increase it to $10 million. He never got around to it. And Biden doesn't give a shit, so he's not going to do anything about it. But it's still a place. And as I told you, if you're a vet, you can go and sign your name and get $250,000 with no collateral, nothing. I told you I didn't do that. But this is the thing you're striving towards. If you do it in 60 days, you'll be ahead of the game. You've heard of people a year and a half, 15 months. You've already heard. I gave him the same fucking thing. He said, I thought I was going to close it in January, but in 2018, but I did it in 2019. And he said, and most of the time, they make the same mistake. They fiddle fart with a couple people, and because you're not experienced, because your board won't push you. Remember, they got free founders equity. There's some downside to free founders equity. They don't want to insult you, that you throw them off before they cash in the free founders equity. So they're not going to tell you the real truth. And the 2 deals that he worked on for 7 or 8 months cratered. Now, I remember, because he was on the reporting system still, if I'm not too mistaken, or if I'm not mistaken at all, I told him in about a week that they were jerking him off. I knew when I first read it in the report. Then when I saw it in the second week report, I knew he was jerking him off. I knew the first time I read the sentence. It's like your deal with the tax returns and the financials. People have a proclivity to lie, and they justify the lies. There's no justification for lies in any part of your life, but they justify their lies because they're talking about their baby, their life savings, or they worked all their life. But it's bullshit. They're still lying to you. And when you've done dozens and dozens and hundreds and thousands like I have, it's a numbers game. You just tell them to fuck off. Okay, any questions on this? Yes, ma'am.
Yesterday, I think you mentioned about Viking bitch that she had.
Pardon? Could you speak up?
Viking bitch.
The Viking bitch.
Yeah,
You're forever now the Russian bitch. But anyway, go ahead.
That's okay.
Okay. Well, I'm not asking you for permission that it's okay. Believe me. Okay, go ahead.
So you mentioned about her getting a banker on her board.
Yeah, she has a banker on her board.
As what? As who? As
no, he was just a general guy, one of the industry experts. He was a banker that had done a gazillion healthcare deals. You're doing well when the partner from the accounting firm wants to join you. You're doing well when the lawyer from the law firm wants to join you. And when the senior credit guy at the bank wants to join you. Those are all good signs. And all those 3 things happened to me. But I had the same board for 9.5 years until the shareholders threw me out. I had lost one dead, but she has a general for a chairman.
And one more question about that type of person. Like, if I'm going to start looking, are they full-timers who are working?
No. Today we're going to talk more, but since you asked the question. Okay. Remember, I said yesterday that there's only 3 executive directors. A CEO, or 2 actually. CEO and CFO are the executive directors. In other words, ultimately, when you have enough cash flow, they'll get salaries. Okay. Well, ultimately, your marketing director will get salaries, but in the beginning, nobody gets anything because you have no money if it's a true startup. Now, when Graham and Leanne go buy something, now they got money. It's tougher, not impossible. Well, I want to see how you work out, so I want you to work for free. But that's tougher now because, especially since they're in the news, etc. But in the beginning, when you start from zero, when you form the company, there's no cash flow. They come to the board meetings on their money. When you have a board meeting, they have a hotel. A lot of the guys, the board members, like the virtual board meetings because they don't have to spend to go to a fucking board meeting because it's on virtual, either Zoom or something there like that. But after you get some cash flow, maybe a 3rd, 4th, 5th deal, depending on the size of the deals, you're paying your CEO and you're paying your CFO if you're not CEO. Okay. The chairman is a non-executive director. The accountant on the board is a non-executive director. The lawyer on the board is non-executive director. Now, when you get to be a $500 million company, you may have an in-house lawyer that is an executive director that you pay. You may have a marketing director. You may have a chief technology officer. You may have a chief information officer. But that's when you're a big company. When you're just in this embryonic stage, and those people that you're bringing on the board should not be like you. Not just because they have experience, but because they're tough. If you're the toughest guy on the board, you pick poorly. You did it ass backwards. Now, Josh has got a board of some pretty tough guys. But he went to, when I tell people 25, they can't believe it. How can you make 25 mistakes? Well, when you were 17, 18, 19, how many mistakes did you make? Lots. So but some people, like, for example, Anelli, who you're going to hear, I believe, today, his CFO is a banker. He's a transactional banker in South Africa.
Actively working in the bank, not...
No. Work past tense. Okay. Your non-executive directors can have other jobs. Since you're not paying them anything, and they're only getting paid if you pay them then, upon completion of a successful transaction, they've got another job. Now, they may aspire to join you as you get bigger, but the good news about non-executive directors, because you're not paying them, other than in stock or options or something like that, you have an opportunity to see if they work out. And remember, the boards are in transition. The same board you start with will not likely be the same board you have when you're a $1 billion company or a $100 million company. I picked because I was experienced. I had the same directors. In fact, we added a couple because I knew. I had seen the guys in combat. I competed against them. I knew who they were. So when I picked them, it was not easy peasy, as our daughter would say, but it was relatively easy because I knew how they performed under fire. Because what you want to know is, in the heat of battle, how do they perform? That's what you want to know. When the shit hits the fan, and not in every deal, but in almost every deal, the shit hits the fan. And how do they react? We've got a deal where the CFO went off to Switzerland skiing. What? I got another one where the guy went off on safari. Deal's closing at the end of the year. And he's in Nairobi, feeling up big-titted black women. Jesus Christ. As soon as the deal was closed, next, fired. Now, when I was young, I'd fire him when he was in Nairobi. I said, I don't give a fuck if the deal doesn't close. Because I really didn't care. But it's not fair to the other guys. So I waited till the deal closed, then sacked him. And then there's the fight over the stock. And your biggest fear is sex, especially cheap Scotsmen. Well, fuck, what am I going to do with it? 1.5% that he's got. Your first is, fuck you, strong email to follow. Sue me. That's the first offer to buy it back. Nothing. The second offer to buy it back is pennies on the dollar or pence on the pound. And then if they don't take that, fuck you, back to the fuck you, strong email to follow. Because a minority shareholder around the world, unless your minority partner is Putin or something, your minority shareholder has virtually no rights. The only right they have is to see the books, the accounts, or whatever you want to call them, the numbers, once a year. And in some countries, you don't have to give it to them, but every 3 years. So they can see the numbers once a year, 2 years late. And so that's worth nothing. But if they hold their stock and you go public and they own 1.5% and they haven't sold you their shares, they hit the cash register with you upon exit. Rarely does that happen. And back in the 90s, we had a few times where they showed up when we went public at the New York Stock Exchange, where their share certificates going like this from up in the bleachers, and they sold their shares. But that doesn't happen very often because there's no measurement or benchmark. When are they going to go public, or when are they going to do this, or when are they going to get sold to a strategic? They don't know, so they would rather take 10 cents on the dollar now. And they also don't know because under your leadership, you could go bankrupt. There's a 50-50 chance, everybody in this room with 4 or 5 exceptions, you'll go bust. 95% of the companies that start go out of business in less than a year. And 95% of the companies that go up for sale worldwide don't sell. Why? Because they're trying to get rich off one transaction. Generational wealth is not built on one transaction. Generational wealth, as I've been saying forever, is built on a series of transactions. And that's the challenge you have when you're trying to buy these businesses from these morons, is because they're going to try to get rich, because they've been told, as some of you have been told, well, I put my money back in the business because I can control my business. So now after 35 years, they put all their money back in the business, and then you come along and give them an offer, 15 cents on the dollar, an embarrassingly low offer, and they crap themselves. But then when you offer them 120% of what they think it's worth over time, you name the price, I name the terms. And then they can justify in their own little pea brain, at the country club, at the tennis club, I sold it for 20% more than it's worth. They don't know, or the people they're telling the story to, in 307 years is the last payment. And they don't tell the folks at the tennis club that they're being bought with their own money. It's a concept it's beyond belief, but it's true. Okay, you two, thank you. Go fuck yourself.